All right, it's time to talk basketball. I'm Jose Salviati, editor at thepeachbasket.net. He is Steve Purciello, a longtime educator, vice principal, high school basketball coach, athletic director, and also the host of Celtic Chalk Talk. Celtic Chalk Talk is a pod dedicated to the latest news and opinions surrounding the Boston Celtics from a lifelong fan, Steve. That pod will drop new episodes every Monday, but this is the Shot Clock Pod, the best 24 minutes of random NBA thoughts online anywhere. This podcast was born out of the content in Steve's 13 Rules random NBA thoughts articles, which he publishes weekly. Steve and I have exactly 24 minutes to discuss what's on his mind around the NBA. Today we'll discuss his latest 13 Rules random NBA thoughts article, where he shares his random thoughts after the final full week of the 2025-26 NBA season. Now, if you've gotten this far, we're grateful and thank you. You're listening to one of the independent fan-driven shows on the Peach Basket Podcast Network. We're not owned by a big media company. It's just us doing what we love. So that means that what you hear comes straight from real fans who live this game every day. If you believe voices like this should be heard, the best way to support us is simple. Keep listening, tell a friend. When this episode ends, head to the Peach Basket Podcast Network.com, head to the peachbasket.net, check out more fan-run podcasts, and help this independent network grow. The way it started, organically, right about the time of the pandemic, one who's fan at a time. We're glad you're here. Thank you. Sit down, enjoy yourself, and let's talk basketball. Steve, are you ready?
Ready.
Let's go. Clock is going. Now, we're going to do things a little different today. We teased this last week. We're going to get to your article because, again, you've got great comments on there and great thought-provoking topics of conversation. And I want to key in on one specifically, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But last week, we talked about a very interesting TikTok video at Step Up Sports, step_up_sports on TikTok. And this, I don't know who this person is. I should have actually pinged them. I might do it after. But this person is saying over the last 3 or 4 years, that he has picked the NBA winner correctly just by identifying 5 analytical calculations, I don't know how else to word it, that every NBA champion has met over the last 5 years. Crazy. So this year, he's doing it again, and everything we're going to share now is good as of last week. I haven't checked this week, admittedly. But listen, who are the teams that we talk about that are potential NBA champions? We talk about the Thunder. We talk about the Nuggets, the Celtics, right? Who else? Maybe the Pistons, the Knicks. Oh, the Knicks have been really good. These are the names that come up, right? That's not what the analytics show, and it's wild. Now, let's go over it very quickly, and I just want to key in on one thing, Stephen. I want your thoughts. Here are the 5 statistics. Every NBA, not every, but 95% of the last 4 or 5 is how many times he's gotten this row. In the history of the NBA, about 95% of the NBA champions match these 5 statistics. Number 1, they had a top 10 points per game or rebound per game leader. So you had to have one of the best players either scoring or rebounding. Okay? Number 2, and this is the only subjective one, you had to have a debatable top 10 player. Okay? 29 of the 30 NBA champions have had a debatable top 10 player. The only outlier was the Detroit Pistons, right? Chauncey Billups' great team. Didn't have a debatable top 10 player. Number 3, top 10 in three-point percentage. That makes so much sense. 11 of the last 12 champs have had that. Got to be able to shoot threes, and that eliminates a lot of teams that we just rattled off. Number 4, top 12 in defensive rating. 38 of 40 champions have been top 12. Defense wins championships. And then number 5, top 10 in field goal percentage. 23 of 25 NBA champions have been in the top 10. That's a solid list. Now, this is what throws me, I know confused you, but there's only one team that checks all 5 boxes. It's not the Boston Celtics. It's not the Oklahoma City Thunder. It's not the Los Angeles Lakers. It's not the Denver Nuggets. It's not the Houston Rockets. It's not the San Antonio Spurs. It's not the Detroit Pistons. It's the Minnesota Timberwolves. Statistically, based on these 5 analytics, they're going to be the 2025-26 NBA champion. Now, what do you think about that, Steve?
It's crazy. When you watch, if you follow basketball and watch it, You see a team sometime every year, just about, that figures out how to win these close games at the end, and
Sure.
really has. They might have a bad stretch or two, but not a horrible stretch. But they play pretty consistent basketball throughout the year. Minnesota is the farthest thing from that. So, to me, I understand the statistics and I understand the idea, but it just doesn't make a great deal of sense
Yeah.
because, like I said, usually a team has played good basketball throughout the year and very consistent basketball. Minnesota is the farthest thing from that.
Yeah.
So, to me, I have trouble with it. I understand the statistics again, but I just
Yeah.
doesn't.
Listen, I can't disagree with you. The Minnesota Timberwolves, as we record this, are 48-33, solidly in the sixth spot. Will likely play the Los Angeles Lakers or the Denver Nuggets. You wrote about that, actually, that seeding. I wouldn't be surprised to see them out. Now, if they play the Lakers, that's a little different because the Lakers are pretty beat up, but going up against the Denver Nuggets. But again, I think that the real telling thing here, for lack of a better way of putting it, is statistics are great, analytics are great, and they're going to be right. I think probably 90, maybe 70, 75% of the time or greater for sure. But it's not a rock solid thing. And this is one of those outliers, one of those weird quirks, right? Because again, the Timberwolves check every box, but when you watch them on the court, they could be great one game and really horrible the next. And over the
Yeah.
course of a 7 game series, you got to be great. You got to be great at least the majority of the time. So big shout out to Step Up Sports on
The
TikTok, though. They're very
the
cool
thing
statistic.
the thing I wanted to add, and I'm trying to think about it right now. How many teams have won an NBA title winning? I know one team off the top of my head winning less than 50 games in a season.
Yeah, not counting the shortened seasons, I'm sure.
No, of course not. But
Yeah,
just the regular. I know Boston in '69 was 48-34. That's the one. Oh, okay. Maybe the Rockets in '95. And there might be a few other ones.
yeah,
I'm guessing the Warriors. I'm guessing, but the
yeah,
point being, if you're under 50 wins, that's not. That's usually the determining point of a good season or a bad season.
yeah,
It might have happened way back in the '70s or '80s. It happened with Boston in '69, but again, it's just not a great thing to see. But go ahead.
yeah. Boston in 1969 was an outlier. That was a miracle, I think. I wasn't around, but I think that
No, it
was a
wasn't a
miracle.
miracle. It was just the way it worked out. In '90, I guess the year the Rockets came in sixth place, they might have been under 50 games. I'm guessing,
Yeah,
and
but
it
they
might
had
have
Hakeem
happened.
Olajuwon, right?
Yeah, yeah,
They had Peak Dream.
yeah. But I don't. Maybe in the '70s because the '70s were like the dark ages of the NBA. But
Yeah, yeah.
not much.
Here, let's put a period at the this end of this one, and we'll start talking about what you wrote. If the Minnesota Timberwolves win, Step Up Sports is going to be the hottest account on all of TikTok.
Yeah,
And major kudos to you should that happen. Hoping it does. I think it'd be cool. All right, let's take a look at this. Now, this week in your article, you wrote about the key to having a successful NBA franchise, which it's an interesting topic. We talked a little bit about that, more along the lines of how difficult it is to be a GM, to build a team. But you're talking about top to bottom successful NBA franchises. You called out the Thunder, the Spurs, the Celtics, undeniably great franchises, and how all three have one thing in common. Now, I want to talk about what that is, but then I also want to pivot because then you also wrote about the worst NBA franchises, and I want to see if there's any way out for those teams. You mentioned the Kings and a few others, the Pelicans, and I want to call out the Los Angeles Clippers as the template, right? If you are stuck in that muck as one of the worst teams, but let's start first with the successful franchises. What do all of those three teams that you called out have in common?
you can't have a meddlesome owner. You have to have an owner who enjoys the game and hires people and lets them do their thing without
Yeah.
interrupting
Why is
or
that so
interjecting.
hard? Why is that so hard for an owner?
Because I
Do
think
you think?
you have so much money and you want to have a toy, and that's your toy, and you're
Ah,
playing fantasy basketball. But so
yeah,
you need the owner. You got to hire the right people. That owner's got to hire the right people in charge, and they've got to be highly competent. And by in charge, not the players and the coach, the people who run it, the president of operations or whatever, general man, whatever you want to call them. Those are the keys. And if you look at the three teams I mentioned, they all have pretty good lead people who are considered the
Sure.
best in the game. That's the things that you need. We as fans think about the coach and the players. Coach can only do so much with his players. If he's got a bad team, he ain't winning. And
Yeah.
the player, the coach, again, you need a good coach to bring it home, but sometimes not a great coach can win. The players naturally, but they're brought in by the general manager or the president of the operation, whatever terminology. So
Yeah.
you need to look at that when you're looking at teams, and those factors go into deciding if a team is or seeing if a team is well run or not.
Yeah. It always starts at the top. And I think that's what you called out. And not only do you need to have somebody at the top that's a fan that knows the game, but then somebody who knows enough not to meddle and to hire the right people and to let them do their job.
There's one more thing is being willing to put money in, meaning
Yeah.
like with Denver won a title a couple of years ago, but the ownership, which the Cronkies, they own, I believe, football, soccer, major
Yeah.
franchises, but they didn't want to go too high and go and pay guys. Bruce Brown, they lost after that title player because they didn't
Right.
want to pay him. And you need an owner that's willing to take the risks, go into the second apron, and not worry about that and wanting to win. And not a lot of them like to spend their money in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what's tough for franchises like the Bulls, the Pelicans, the Kings. You're a fan of that team and you pour your heart into that team, and you really know that the only way to get good is for the team to be sold. And there's nothing you can do about that. That's tough. And that's where I want to call out the Los Angeles Clippers. When you wrote about the worst run franchises, you called out those three teams. It is undeniable that in the history of sport, a matter of fact, I think Sports Illustrated maybe 10 years ago had a list of the worst franchises, not in NBA history, at all time, the worst franchises, and the Clippers came out number one. This was obviously before Ballmer, but you can see what a change to that kind of ownership looks like because Steve Ballmer is a huge fan. He's hands off. He absolutely doesn't mind spending the money. And look at what he did for the Clippers. Is there any hope for the Bulls, Pelicans, and Kings?
I think for the Kings, they'd have to sell, or the owner would have to take a vow to stay, to get out for a while and not say a word.
Yeah.
For the Bulls, Jerry Reinsdorf is not known. He's got to be 90 or so, and his son, but he's not known to spend money. He also owns the White Sox, but he's not known to want to spend money, and he's also not good at firing people. It took him 6 years to fire Kanishevich, who was their president, and just fired him in the last week or so. But it took him 6 years when people saw he wasn't really competent 2 years ago. That's not a great situation. So these teams, they need major changes in how the team is run before they can even think about trying to win. The ownership is like so important, and then the people, like I said, the people they hire.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. I have a soft spot in my heart for the Sacramento Kings. Great fans, great environment, but just a poorly run franchise. Hoping for the best for the Kings and also for the Bulls and also for the Pelicans. But my gosh, they're stuck
Well,
in the mud right now.
the Pelicans are a story too. It's Gail Benson owns the team. Her husband owned everything. He passed. She took it. They're playing right next to the Superdome. The arena's right next to it, and it's a foot. She owns the football team. It's a football town. She doesn't want to spend a lot of money with them, so she's trying to do it on the cheap, and it reflects with the Pelicans. And if you look at the Pelicans, they have some talent. They just hired Joe
Oh, sure.
Dumars, who won a title when he was with Detroit, when he was working for Detroit. But Joe Dumars just traded a lottery pick for Derek Queen. Derek Queen's going to be a good player,
Yep.
but they're going to be picking probably in the top 7 or 8, and you're giving away a good rookie because of that. So just management and what you hire is what it's all about.
Yeah, undeniable. Tough to be a fan of those teams, but much respect to the fans that are. Let's talk about a player who's had some bad luck of late and a franchise that some people are saying now might be cursed. That's the Philadelphia 76ers. They were getting good, playing good basketball, had everybody healthy and looked good. And then Joel Embiid goes down with appendicitis. What? It's so weird. Cade Cunningham, a collapsed lung, now appendicitis. These are not normal basketball injuries. He's out of surgery, but this changes everything for the Sixers, doesn't it?
You know what? I don't know if you're a player on that team, you can't enjoy it because every day there's something going on, and the whole season is predicated around Joel Embiid being healthy.
Yeah.
He doesn't play a lot of games. Now he's got appendicitis. Usually it's a knee problem, but now it's appendicitis. They're about to start the play in. If they win, they go into the playoffs without him.
Yeah.
The usual time of injury is about 25 to 30 days when appendicitis. So that would be through the first round. So now you're looking for this team who's going to play a higher seed to win without Joel Embiid. That's crazy. And here's the kicker. I believe he signed through 28, 29 with a player option, I think, in that at the end. Now, that means if you're a player on a team, you're going to have to go through this for the next 3 or 4 years because he's making a lot of money, and I don't know if any team. I don't think many teams are going to want to trade for him. So
Yeah.
either, and Philadelphia's not going to cut him because when he does play, he's great. But what a way to play! What a mess! And
Yeah.
that's just it's just hard. It's just very hard.
Yeah, we talk about this it seemingly every time this time of year, how cool it would be for every team to go into the playoffs injury free. I think if we were to have that luxury over the course of the NBA's history, the winning teams would be different, right? Because a lot of times teams win because other teams were injured. You take a look at what happened to the Los Angeles Lakers, they're decimated. You take a look at the 76ers. It changes everything and it's unfortunate, but that's just the way
Right.
it is. Let's talk about the playoffs. Now, like we said, next week and the playoffs, so it's time to start dissecting those playoff matches. And you wrote about how it's a big final week for the San Antonio Spurs. Do they need to avoid the Nuggets? How do they match up there? Because you wrote about possibly avoiding them.
It's really interesting. They play each other today. Now I'm reading that the Nuggets are going to sit out a bunch of guys.
Hmm.
Jokic should play because he needs that for the to be an MVP and all that. But it's still he's questionable, I guess, today. But if you're San Antonio, if you go out and beat, you don't want anybody hurt, but if you go out and beat Denver, that puts the Lakers in third place because the Lakers have Utah. And the Lakers should win even without their two best guys. So if you're San Antonio, you don't want to play. Denver just beat them up in Denver a week ago in a great
Great
game.
game. Yeah.
Yeah. So why, when you want to do that, when you could maybe push Denver to fourth place and have them play against, let them fight with Oklahoma City while you're San Antonio. If you win your first round, which you should, of course, you're going to play the winner of a Laker Minnesota series. I'll take my chances there as opposed to playing Denver because you have Jokic. So they're in an interesting spot, and my sense would be they're going to rest people, but they're asking for trouble in the long haul.
Yeah. One of those weird matchups where you've got two playoff teams, undeniably, two teams really with championship aspirations, but in this final game, they might both be playing to lose. Kind of a weird situation.
Why, again, why would you want to have to push yourself in the second round and then you're going to play Oklahoma City? Ooh,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's,
Can you imagine?
when you might have
That's
it
tough.
easier. Yeah, a little easier, though Minnesota's has played well in the last few years in the playoffs, and they could
Yeah.
be dangerous. I don't give the Lakers a great chance of advancing
No.
unless a miracle happens and these two guys get healthy. But
Yeah.
I just don't see that happening. It's a nice story if they win a few games and are competitive, but they just don't have enough talent at this point.
Yeah. No, agreed. All right. And speaking of not enough talent, not the cleanest of segues, but it works. The NBA is having some real trouble. We've talked about it multiple times this season. And that's with tanking. And it was really front and center this past week. You've got over the last couple of weeks, you have two distinct teams. You've got two playoff teams that play each other, and it's a playoff atmosphere. You mentioned the Spurs and Thunder, great game. The Celtics Knicks, great game. These are two teams battling. It's fun to watch, enjoyable. And then you watch Utah versus anybody, the Kings versus anybody, and it's horrible basketball. You had the Sacramento Kings intentionally fouling the greatest free throw player of all time because they were ahead and they wanted to lose that game. Isn't it odd that you've got this clear distinction between playoff matchup basketball and tanking teams? And how do you fix it?
Well, I don't know if you fix it. The other night, I put on the Celtics were playing New Orleans. Now, when you really analyze it, New Orleans got some talent.
Yeah,
However, when I start telling you who didn't play, DeJounte Murray, Zion, right off the bat, two of your best guys, Trey Murphy, another real good player, and
yeah,
Yves Messi, missing also. He's not a bad big. So all of a sudden, that's four guys who start not playing. What are we doing? And Boston, they won by 30. They could have won by whatever they wanted it to be. And it was just like a waste of time. It was a scrimmage, guys running up and down the floor, shooting and having a nice day.
right.
But it was terrible. And you watch enough of that in the last 2 weeks, and you sit there, and it almost led me to watch baseball because it's just so bad.
Yeah,
And that's what you see at any time you put. So you're looking for games where two teams in the playoffs are playing against each other, and that's not often in the last couple
yeah,
weeks.
true.
That's why I said the Denver San Antonio game was a classic for a regular season game. They just went at each other, and they really, right to the end, they played,
Yeah,
and some great players in the game. The Boston New York game. Now Jaylen Brown didn't play in the game.
yeah,
Pretty good, of course, but still, it was a great game, and Josh Hart had to hit two big threes in the last minute or two to win the game. Great game to watch, too. It was intense and it was fun to see. That's what you want to see. And even
yeah,
today, where teams are still unsettled, they're in the play-in, they hear, and watch how many guys don't play. And it's a shame. And there's nothing, the tanking is one thing, but there's nothing you can do when a team like the Knicks sits out Brunson and Towns and each of these players.
yeah,
Well, in Charlotte, it's an important game for Charlotte, of course, but who play the Knicks. But it's just not fun to sit
yeah,
there. This should be a time. The NBA does it right. I believe the Eastern teams play 6 o'clock, and then the Eastern time, and 8:30 would be the Western teams. So they're all playing the same time. So now, as a fan, if all these teams are playing hard, my God, you could have a great time. Like again,
yeah,
that San Antonio Denver game, it could be a lot of fun. So that's a great idea. But then these guys not playing ruins it, ruin the whole thing. Is
yeah.
the point?
It is the point. And Adam Silver has said, listen, it's his priority to fix it. He hasn't said how he's going to fix it, but he intends to fix it, which is great. And I know you've thrown out some ideas. I don't have any at all, admittedly. But I will say this. You mentioned baseball. One of the things that I really enjoyed when I was growing up as watching baseball was the September call-ups, right? This is near the end of the season, and it wasn't that teams weren't trying anymore, but everything was set. So they would expand the rosters. It's a 182 game season. So they'd expand the roster, and then you get to see some young guys come up, get their first hit, get their first home run, their first strikeout as a pitcher. And it was cool. I enjoyed watching that. And I'm just throwing things out here because this is what the NBA kind of gets wrong, right? When players like Jalen Brunson sit, let's see a young stud, a G League stud come up and get a chance as opposed to just pitching it as they're trying to lose. This is an opportunity for us to see some of these great young players. It's a different sport, so it's not going to
Right.
translate as well, but that's something I love about baseball. I'd love to maybe see translated into basketball. Is that a possibility?
I don't think there's any way around it because if you're the Knicks today, why would you think about using those guys? If somebody gets hurt, you're forever going to be second guessed and said, "Why did you think about
Yeah,
playing them?" So you can't, you just can't, you can't do that. If you're San Antonio today, what's better here? If you play Wembanyama has been hurt. If you play him and he gets hurt worse and he misses next week,
yeah,
you lost your season. So you're going to not play everybody because the game means nothing. But by the same token, ruins the fun that it would be in a day like today.
Got it. All right, let's do this. Clock shot went off. You heard it, but I just popped in my head, and we're just going to roll with it because shot clock violation is the name of the game. We should go from shot clock pod to shot clock violation pod because that's what we do. All right, hand on the Bible, etched in stone right now. Who is your 2025-26 NBA champion?
Probably Oklahoma City.
Okay.
And that's the
I'm
favorite.
going to
That's the
go.
chalk.
Okay.
It just right now. I'd have to think it would be them, especially if they in the second round get the Laker Minnesota thing. That would make it easier. To me, I don't see them losing. The East has got Boston, the Knicks, Detroit, and I guess Cleveland, but it's rough because they're going to have to play each other to get there, and that's going to be rough. And then they'd have to play Oklahoma. I don't see it. How about you?
All right. I'm glad you asked. All right. Last season, it was a young team. We played great defense, a lot of energy, run team. They are the defending champions. That's your pick this season. I'm saying this season, same type of team, young team, great defense, run franchise. The 2025-26 NBA champions are going to be the San Antonio Spurs. And our fans at the Spurs Bros Pod are celebrating right now. That's what's going to happen. You heard it here first. All right.
Well,
We'll
okay.
see how it goes. Nice. All right, that's it. You heard the shot clock go off. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Make sure to read Steve's entire 13 Rules Random NBA Thoughts article. We talked about everything, but he also mentioned some Billy Donovan news and some Anthony Davis news about why NBA players get a bad rap. Make sure to read the article, get all of that content. We'll link it wherever you're watching or listening to this show today. And join us next week for more Random NBA Thoughts as we recap the play-in tournament, the first week of, as we prepare for the playoffs. We'll talk then, Steve. Thanks.